Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Perkins Custom Swimbait channel. Appreciate everyone taking some time to watch today's video. So around this time last year, I did a video titled My 2024 Swimbait Rod and Swimbait Reel Arsenal. Okay, so I'm going to do an updated video for that one. So this will be the 2025 Swimbait Rod, Swimbait Reel. We're going to go ahead and talk about fishing line too, that I typically fish on these, and go at it from that angle as well. So I do want to add one more thing in here. I know your time is precious to you, and I really appreciate you taking time to watch this video. So down below, if you have certain rods that you're interested in, but the other ones you're kind of, hey, I've already got a Dobyns, I want to check out a Leviathan or something like that, I'm going to leave chapters down below so you can jump to those specific segments of the video. So just wanted to give that and provide that for you. Otherwise, let's hop right into it. We're going to start out really in no specific order. So I really categorize my rods really into basically two kinds of rods, either a soft bait swim bait rod or a hard bait swim bait rod. With my hard baits, typically what I will do is categorize those based on really just how heavy they end up needing to be able to throw the bait. Same with the soft bait, but the soft baits, what I really am looking for is it a treble hook or is it a jig hook that I'm needing to try to set the hook on? That really determines what kind of action I need in the rod. Same idea as to a crankbait rod versus a jig or a spinnerbait rod. A jig or a spinnerbait rod, you're trying to set a big 5/0 hook into a fish's jaw. You need a much bigger, much stouter rod, or you change your line up to be able to compensate for that, versus a crankbait where you need a limber rod to be able to play the fish on those little treble hooks. So let's hop right into it. First up, this is a rod that I've had. This is one of the oldest that I have, actually. This is the Dobyns. So this is the Dobyns 795 Dobyns Fury. It's just a workhorse rod. It's a really good rod for what I use it for. This rod is typically my line through swimbait rod. That's typically what I use it for. As you can see right now, I've got the 316 Rising Sun top hook tied on. It's the dirty shad color. I know that really doesn't matter to this video, but that's what it is. And what I'm running here is a Daiwa Tatula 200. That's in the 6:3-1. I'm not really trying to get speed with this bait, so I'll use this rod. This is actually probably my favorite rod. I do have a second rod that I'll talk about in a moment, but either this rod or that other rod for line through swim baits and mag drafts. That's about all this rod throws for me. That is what it's designated for. Running line, I run about 12-pound test copolymer on this. Pretty well straight 12-pound test copolymer. It's the P-Line CXX. I have had no issues with line breakage or anything like that. That 12-pound CXX is very strong line. It's more closer to probably 20-pound fluorocarbon. So great combo. I've caught a ton of fish on this. This 795, it will work for a glide bait. This is the rod that I caught my 6.5 on, and it will work just fine. You don't need to worry about this rod. It will handle a glide bait. It says that it's rated for 1 to 5 ounces. For me, the sweet spot is really 3. I would not go above a 3 on this. You can run a 4, but it really starts to push the rod a little bit. This is also an excellent Alabama rig rod. I've used, if I ever go fish a tournament in a buddy's boat or something, this is one of the rods that I look at as a very universal kind of rod. It can throw the umbrella rig, the mag draft, a small glide bait like the 6-inch Jethro that I build. It throws that fantastic. Things like that, your smaller stuff, but also think treble hook with this rod. It's got a really nice parabolic bend to it. Now, I will say this for this rod. I have This is one of the older models, so I can't speak to how the newer ones do, but this one is really parabolic and it's held up really well through the years of being on the boat. And you know, I've definitely put it through the ringer on some of this, so it's been a good rod. All right, let's go next up. So next up is going to be a fun one because I'm going to try to get it up here. Okay. Next up, this is the Daiwa Kage umbrella rig or A-rig rod. So this is a stout rod, and it says that it's fast action, and it really is. This is actually a pretty good fast action rod. But now I will be honest, I'm really enjoying this rod for an A-rig rod, you know, as the name intends. But my other thing that I'm really using it for and I enjoy working with is going to be like your 6-inch jig hook baits. Your 68 HUD, something along the lines of your 6-inch Citizen will work great on this rod. Any of your mag draft freestyles, the 6-inch with the beast hook, basically anything in a jig hook that is pretty much going to hit around that 3 ounces or less. It rates up to 4, and I'm still playing with the top end to see as to how much it can take. This is a new rod to me. I've only had it for about 2 or 3 months. I've caught some fish on it, but I've just not put in enough time yet to exactly know where its limitations truly are. As you can tell, I'm running, this is the rod throwing my mag draft umbrella rig. And I know that, I mean, I said that about it being a jig hook rod, and it truly is. In my mind, this is a jig hook rod. But, you know, there's a lot of meat on this thing trying to throw these. So I wanted a stouter rod, and that's why I put it on here. And I'm not really worried. I haven't lost any fish throwing it like that yet. So it's all right. This is the Daiwa Lexa 300 is what's on here. This is the one with the wind grips. I really like those. They are super nice and comfortable to fish with. Line, I'm running 20-pound fluorocarbon. This is the Cigar Braze X. I had a spare spool. I've actually picked up some more line that I'm going to try out, and I'll let y'all know how that goes. But Cigar Braze X. The Kage, it is definitely a faster taper. You know, you could throw a glide bait on it, but I just don't feel like that is its sweet spot. I really feel like this rod is going to absolutely do its best in that 3 ounce range, 2 to 3 ounce range with a jig hook. And I've already detailed some of those swim baits that I think it's going to work great on, but that's really where I think this one's sweet spot is, because, and it's 7'9", so you've got a really good casting distance. The only thing that I could say that I'm not a huge fan of is the handle. I wish it was longer. I have gotten so accustomed to fishing with the Leviathans, and the Leviathans have a very long handle. And I'm tall. I'm 6'4". So for me, when I tuck that underneath, you know, underneath my arm, I like that long handle to really be able to tuck under there, because my arms in turn are long, so it allows me to be able to fish a lot more comfortably with that Leviathan, being able to stretch my arm out a little bit more. Now, if you're a little bit shorter than me, you know, that might be a perfect length handle for you. I'm not sure exactly what the length is, probably in that 17 to 18 inches mark. That's about the norm. I think the Leviathans are around 20, but that is, you know, one of the key drawbacks for me, just because of my height and how I like to tuck the handle up under me, because these baits are heavy, especially once you start getting above like this. I mean, this is a heavy bait. It's very cumbersome. It is taxing on the body to throw this much. I did throw it for a couple of hours, and your shoulder is feeling it, even with the rod being set up the way it is. I'll try this with a couple other rods. I'm wanting to try it with my Dobyns as well to see if it loads a little bit more. If it loads a little bit better with like a more parabolic, you know, with the 806, and see if that loads a little bit better. But I really want this this rod just has a purpose for me with those single jig hook baits that I want to have it on the boat. And it just turned out at the time I was wanting to test out this that I built. If you're following me on Instagram and Facebook, you would have seen a picture of this thing with me taking it, and you'd be surprised as to how small of a fish that I caught on it. But you know, running the little 4-inch, I think that's the spark shad, Megabass spark shad. So, but yeah, we'll hop off this rod now. But it's a great rod, does its job. It's not heavy. It's just if that handle were a little bit longer for my height, I think it'd be great. All right, let's go to the next rod. So if I had to have a rod and call that Daiwa Kage my designated like 5, 6, 7-inch swim baits, and that's another good example of like your burritos or your the Zal Dangerous swim bait by Bass Mafia. Those that is what I'm going to fish on that rod. The 1 ounce, you know, the 5-inch, you could fish that on another rod. I'll probably fish it on that rod, or I do have one more rod that I'll detail here in a minute that I'm going to probably try with it too. It just depends on how much do I really need to actually set the hook on that rod, so, or for that bait. But that's another bait example. So now the big one. So this is an older model. This is the Daiwa DX swim bait rod. This is the 801 extra heavy fast action. Okay, I got this. This was my first ever swim bait rod. First one I ever bought, and I love this thing. It has a purpose though, and its purpose is this time of year. Otherwise, it rarely sees the deck of the boat. This is my wintertime rod that I typically do. I'm going to be throwing it a lot as soon as our weather breaks. We just got a huge snowstorm in and all that fun stuff. So what I'm running, the Daiwa DX extra heavy, it is rated 4 to 14 ounces. I don't think Daiwa makes this rod anymore. They discontinued it, and what they ended up doing is I think they've redone the DX swim bait lineup, and it's not quite, their extra heavy is not up to 14 ounces. I think it's only like up to 9 or 10. This one's a really stout rod, so it will throw anything I need to, but it's a jig hook rod. This is designated as a jig hook. As you can tell, I've got my 8-inch Huddleston on here with the jig hook still. I haven't Butch Brown rigged this one or anything like that. This one is a ROF 12, and you know, this is my crawling. Throw it out on the point, throw it out on a flat, let it hit that ledge, and you just slow crawl that thing up the ledge. That's all this is. Once again, the handle on these are a lot longer than the Kage series. This one feels really comfortable for me to just sling it way out, tuck it under your arm, and then start your crawl that takes about 5 minutes to get a cast in. Reel. This is the older model of the Daiwa Lexa. This is a 6.3 to 1. Both of my Lexas are in the 6.3 to 1 because I use those primarily for soft baits or big wake baits. So don't really need the speed there, but that's the go-to here. The rod itself, like, given that it's 4 to 14 ounces, I mean, sweet spot for me is probably going to be 6 to 8 ounces. I'm probably not going to fish anything heavier than that. I just don't have, you know, I mean, throwing a 10-inch bait, a 14 or a 12-inch bait, I've done it. But man, that gets really taxing really quick. I like to throw the 8-inch Hud. It's big enough you get a big bite, but it's small enough that you still get other bites. So the 8-inch Hud is probably the sweet spot for me for this rod, but this rod can definitely handle a lot. So that's the DX swim bait rod with the Lexa. All right. Let's see what I've done. All right. The next rod. The next rod, this one you've already seen. This rod I bought about 2 years ago now. I bought this after I stuck my PB, and I wish I would have stuck my PB on this cart. on this rod. So this is the Leviathan Omega Swimbait rod, heavy, 8 foot heavy. It is rated, it's a moderate fast, so it's a slower taper, and it's rated up 2 to 6 ounces. I love this rod. As you can tell, the handle is very long. Just for comparison, you can kind of see it really does span about my shoulders. It's a long handle, and you get used to that. The reel is the Daiwa Tatula 300 and an 8-to-1. For what I use this for, I do not like throwing a slower gear ratio. This to me is the perfect setup to throw the Jethro 7.5 and the Jethro 6.0. So that is what this rod's used for, to be honest. I use it for my glide baits, and that's it. It doesn't throw anything else because I always have my glide bait tied on, because you just never know when you're going to need a glide bait. But the key to it is the rod bows and it loads up on a fish so well. I think total, and I've caught a lot of glide bait fish over the past 2 years, I've lost 2 fish that I know of. One cost me big fish in a tournament this year, and I did that because I couldn't get, the fish bit the bait within 4 feet of line out. I didn't have enough time to get to the net and play the fish in the whole 9 yards, and it just threw the bait. The other one was a small fish, and I can't even remember it that well. So the key to this is this rod has helped me increase my hookup to land ratio. It's not really increasing my, it's not really helping you as far as, are you getting bites? I was getting bites on the Dobyns. Don't get me wrong, the Dobyns is a fantastic rod for what I use it for. And it worked great for the 6.5 pounder. It's just, since getting the Leviathan, it's taken it to a completely different level. For me to tell you that this rod and the Dobyns are identical, I couldn't do that. When you fish with this rod, and I don't want to kind of get on a soapbox as far as how much I enjoy throwing these rods. It's just, this rod was truly built for a glide bait or a treble hook. It was built with that in mind. It loads perfectly to cast. It's not taxing. I can throw this rod all day long. I will never get tired, and I can keep fishing a glide bait. And that is the rod. And I think that's something that, to think about. I mean, I'm in my 30s, so I'm still young. But as you get older, and I don't know how many people I've talked to that say they hate the A-rig because the Alabama rig hurts to throw. It's physically, it hurts to throw it. I throw that Mag Draft A-rig, and it hurts to throw it. But I think it's one of those situations where you have to try to find the perfect rod to throw with that bait, because it's not just the rod. It's the whole system that goes together to be able to throw these things properly. When you're only throwing a bait, like my rock crawler, for example, I've thrown that rock crawler and I caught fish 2 weeks ago on a spinning rod, a 7'4" moderate action spinning rod, versus the G Loomis, E6X that I was catching them on, a month ago. So, and it didn't tax my body any differently. When you get to this size of a bait, that's 4-6 ounces, and you try to throw them all day long, I'm not telling you to buy a Leviathan. I would never tell anybody to buy these in the sense of expanding your limit if you had to. But what I would say is finding something, maybe your buddies have a rod that you can try and test out. Throw it some. Throw a heavy bait. Maybe they'll loan it to you for an hour or so while you're on the boat with them. Maybe, they'll let you fish with it one day. something like that, just something to give you an idea as to how it's going to work with your body, because this rod works great for me. I'm sure some people probably don't throw a Leviathan. That's not their rod of choice. They have, F5, G Loomis, Lowdown Custom makes great rods. All these companies make great rods. You have to find what works for you. And Leviathan is one of those that just, it really worked for me once I got it. But this is the Omega Heavy. I can't say enough good things for this. It really, like I said, it improved my hookup to land ratio of once I got the fish hooked, I could get it in the boat. And like I said, I've lost 2 fish on it. Line, let's hit that real quick because that's very important. I changed, and let me do 2 details. When I'm fishing the Jethro 6.0 and the Jethro 7.5, typically I'm not long casting this thing, you know, throwing it over points, throwing it over, drop offs, big flats, something like that. That is not this rod's purpose. Once again, I've wanted to take my glide bait fishing of that bait to that, level of this rod has a purpose for a specific time of year, kind of. This rod with this reel and this line is used for targets. I want it around stumps. I want it around rock walls. That's a great one too. But timber, docks, anything like that, I want it very much a target associated rod and reel. So with that, what I did is I put braid on. I'm running 80 pound Max Quattro Power Pro braid to a 20 pound Sunline fluorocarbon shock leader. It's a mouthful, and I get that, but that is what I'm running. And the reason that I do that is this year, it was in April or May, and the smallmouth were coming off of the spawn. So it's probably May. They were coming off the spawn, and what I ended up finding was, it was early in the morning, and I'd always heard about people being able to really chop glide baits. I mean, just like a super spook under the water. Dogs are playing. Super spook under the water, right? Chopping hard. I ended up doing that, and I was doing it on 15 pound McCoy copolymer line. All right. So lo and behold, guess what happens? Over the course of that day, because I'm having to chop it so hard, I am putting so much stretch in that line, I can't take up line fast enough, even with an 8-to-1, to be able to get it chopped fast enough. I peeled off at least 4 to 5 times 10 foot of line, cutting, retying, to be able to make the bait do what I needed it to do to catch fish. They wanted it so fast in the water. I was getting too much stretch out of the copolymer. So I switched. I've had no issues with this line. Now, as far as my braid to leader connection knot, I use the modified 9 twist blood knot that Tactical Bassin uses. I have not had any issues. And until I start having issues, I'm going to keep using it. But that has been my combo that I've used. And I really like it. And like I said, I've not lost but 2 fish. The one this year was using this particular braid to leader, but I've used very few I have not lost any others this year since switching to braid to leader. So it's a great combo. I've not had any issues, and it's worked really well. So I'm going to get off of the Leviathan right now, and I'm going to move on. But if you have any questions or anything about any of these rods, because I know the Leviathan is a very expensive purchase, and that's something else. I bought each one of these rods and reels. So I'm not biased. I'll give you my honest opinion like I did with that Daiwa Kage. If there's something I don't like about it, I'd be more than willing to tell you, because those Leviathans, they're expensive rods. It's a North Fork custom, so it's a Gary Loomis's company's blanks. and then Leviathan ends up building the rest of it. But the blank was built by North Fork Custom, is my understanding, based on what they say on their company's website. So, all right, let's hop into this next one, because this one's a fun rod. I really enjoy this rod. It's had a lot of fish caught on it this year. All right. This is also a Daiwa swimbait rod. This is the Daiwa Tatula swimbait rod. And this is the 7'4", okay? So when I got this rod, I got it with one purpose in mind. Excuse me, it's 7'3", it's not 7'4". And it's maxes out at 4 ounces is what it says. So I got this rod and I wanted it specifically for topwater. I needed something shorter. I couldn't ever walk a bait like a big spook or something with a big, like, 8-foot rod. I just had issues. I couldn't get it to work. So what I ended up doing is I picked up this, and I've not looked back. Now, turns out this rod works with a lot of other baits really well. It's not just a topwater rod. I love this rod for throwing an Alabama rig. I also really enjoy it for my crank downs. You can kind of see that's what I've got on here right now. It's a 6-inch Jethro crank down. It gets down to about 12 to 18 feet, just depends on how I'm throwing it. But I have definitely hit 18 with it. I saw it on the live scope. So the funny thing with this is it's definitely not a jig hook rod, but at the same time it can throw a jig hook. But to me, it's better suited for treble hooks. This is probably going to be the rod that I tried the Zal Dangerous 5-inch swimmer with. So I'll let you know how that goes. But as far as the reel goes, 7.3 to 1, Daiwa Tatula 200. I'm running braid, so this one's running 50-pound Power Pro. Yeah, this one's running Power Pro. Trying to think. Yeah, 50-pound Power Pro to probably a 12-pound copolymer leader. Maybe a little thicker, but probably 12. I don't go really wild and crazy with this rod. Biggest bait that I throw on it as far as numbers of fish caught is definitely the Evergreen shower blows, the 150 size, the big one. I like the big one. That is a really good bait. It walks great, and this rod does it phenomenally. I haven't lost any fish on this rod with that bait. So it's just a good all-around rod and reel. And then that bait just works great for it. So, also length of the handle, it works great for what I use it for. So it is shorter, as you can kind of tell. It only comes up to about here, but that works great. Dogs are playing. So it works great if you're just trying to like walk a super spook or something like that. So like the Mega Bass Mega Dog, or can't remember what the other one is called, the giant one. That would be the rod that I would throw it on. Just something that I can still work it really fast. My crawlers will be thrown on this rod just because I can get really target because of that 7.4. But it's not overbearing. You can throw a mag draft with this rod too. Fantastic. The 6-inch is the best because you can skip so easily with it because it is 7'4". You can just, throw it way under docks. It's great. So, all right, we've got 2 to go, and this one is another new rod. And this one's one that I'm still putting some time in. I haven't caught a fish on this rod. What I got here is a Leviathan 8-foot extra heavy, moderate fast, rated 2 to 8 ounces. So it's a big rod. and it will handle my 6-ounce glide baits is predominantly what I bought this for. This rod, I bought it for the giant big omer. That's what I bought it for. It's an 11-inch glide bait, weighs right around 6 ounces. It casts really well on this. I'm running on 20-pound fluorocarbon. No issues. Haven't had any problems. This one's on 20-pound of braise eggs also. So, like I said, I'll be switching out some line, I'm sure, at some point in time. But I told you wrong. This is not fluorocarbon. This is copolymer. This one's running 20-pound McCoy copolymer. It's a great line. And for these glide baits, the big ones like the big omer, I'm not trying to chop it. I'm wanting that slow, meandering, wide glide. I want something slow and soft and easy. I want them to rise up and just take a whack at it. So that's my go with this rod. It's not a chopping style. That's why I'm running the line that I am. And the reel is a Daiwa Tatula 300 with a 7-to-1 gear ratio. The 7-to-1's fast enough I can still pick it up a little bit if I do need to speed up the bait, but it's not like the 8-to-1 where it's designated as a chopping glide. I like the 8 because I can cover water a lot faster. The 7 is more for like those big points, big flats that I want to just throw it way over and draw those fish up to it. So that's its purpose. I'll keep you posted throughout the winter. That's when I'm really wanting to use this winter, and then going into the pre-spawn, I'm going to be throwing a big glide bait as much as I can. Definitely be throwing the 7.5 a lot, but I'm going to try to force myself to throw a big glide, big 10, 11-inch glide. Last rod that I've got, I don't even have a reel on it right now, but this is the Dobyns. This is the Dobyns Fury 806 swimbait rod. This was the second swimbait rod I ever bought, and this rod, it's a really good rod, 2 to 8 ounces. It will throw up to about 4 to 5. It's not really to me, it really weakens out. It is more of a glide bait rod, or a treble hook rod. I like this for my big wake baits, something like that. Treble hooks that I can really just go slow with, and then when they hit it, they got it. But also just know that you max out above about 5 ounces. It's a really good rod. Don't have any issues with it. The handle's decently long. Comes up to about the end of my elbow. But, yeah, that's kind of it. Well, I know this has been a little bit of a longer video, but I did want to do an update for this year for what kind of rods I'm using when I go swim bait fishing. I definitely, if I had to pick, you know, let's say that you're in a tournament situation and you're going on a buddy's boat because, you know, they're driving this go around. Which rods would I take with me? If I did not know anything about what was going on and I wanted to be able to catch a big fish on a big bait, I would probably take 2 rods. Number 1 would be the Leviathan Heavy with the 8-to-1 gear ratio reel. Number 2 would probably be that 7'3" Daiwa swim bait rod with the 7 3-to-1 reel on it for topwater. That'd be my 2 rods. If I had to pick 2 to go with me on a tournament situation on someone else's boat, if it's on my boat, I'll take them all if I need them. It just depends on what the bite is doing as to when you might need one of those different rods. And just remembering, if I upsize my bait, I have to upsize the rod, because some of these rods, the Leviathan is really good for 4 ounces and down, the heavy, for treble hooks. like, you got to think about it from the jig hook versus a treble hook. You're not really trying to compare apples to apples. You've got two separate categories as to how you need to set the hook. So just think about that when you're looking at rods. Definitely, if your buddies have a rod that you like or you're interested in, check it out, play with it, try to throw it for a couple of casts, feel how it feels under your arm. If you enjoy fishing it under your arm, you may not. Find what works for you, because some of these can get really expensive. The Leviathans are not cheap. The Daiwa rods are not cheap. The reels, Shimano makes some great reels too. I am a Daiwa guy. I'm very open and honest with everybody about that. There is very few reels that I own that's not Daiwa. I do own some Shimano. They work great. I still use them. It's just like that Dobyns Fury that doesn't have a reel on it will probably be that Shimano 200 that I've got. I've got some Abu Garcia Luz and so on. But as far as me, I like the Daiwa. I don't have issues out of the Daiwa, and I've stuck with the Daiwa reels. So I either throw the 200 or the 300 reels on my baits. And here's a rule of thumb as far as the reels go. When do I switch from the 200 to the 300? Basic rule of thumb, if I go over 3 ounces, I switch to a 300. So you kind of peg that. So my Jethro 200, my Jethro 6.0, I'll throw on a 200 or a 300. I prefer it on the 300, but you know, it works. So there's today's video. I appreciate everyone that has stuck around for the entirety of today's video. I know it's a long one. I wanted to get this out for all these different rods. Likewise, you know, share this video with your friends, any of your fishing buddies that plan to get into swim baiting, any of them that like the big baits, the big rods. If they're interested in maybe purchasing one of these, this video may help them with some of the information, as well as feel free to comment down below. If you want to reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram, I'm available there. I'll answer any questions that I possibly can. You know, try to help. But hey, if you're not subscribed, please hit that little subscribe button to me down below. It is 100% free. It does not cost anything. And, you know, it helps the channel grow. Please give the video a thumbs up. Let's try to get as many likes as we can on the video, because it really does help the YouTube algorithm push this out to more people. And like I had said before, please put any questions down below in the comment section. I'm more than happy to tell you about my past experiences with these rods, anything that is, you know, unique to it. I'll do my best to answer any question that I can, and I'll give you an honest opinion. Like I said, I've purchased each one of these rods. I am not sponsored by any of them. So appreciate everyone watching. Hope y'all are having a great time, staying safe, because I know there's been a pretty good set of snowstorms that have come across the country here recently. The dogs are fighting, but I'll see you in the next video.